视频中，一位父亲在努力地搅拌着水泥，一旁的地上是熟睡的女儿。也许生活很苦，但是只要在父亲身边，孩子就不会觉得苦。干活很累，可是看到熟睡的女儿，父亲就充满了拼搏的动力。也许这就是最平淡的幸福吧。
看完医院啊，看看，我们就是觉得营养不良，吃不能出院。所有的人饭都扔出来了啊，看看，每层楼都绝食，大家就是抗议不吃了。
你骗啥呀？老百姓不理解你就这样，你不长大头了。
你找我有什么用啊？
我问你，你有做报告的吗？不能这个态度，都是人民公敌。
我怎么个态度了？他是一个公务员，然后他进来之后，他扫完码之后，我让他登记，我看他登记证他不给我，然后还辱骂我，我就跟我们领导汇报了一下，他就这样对我。
喂，你好。
哦，你谁啊
？ICU1号病人家属。
啊，我这是啥？我张大夫。你爸不在了啊？啊，我给前几天打电话，一直我接刚刚还不停给你打电话。我给你问情况，那个啥，你会赶紧来人不？
的时候遭到这个丁流村的一个村民的阻拦，刚砌好的那个围墙，他用脚去踹去蹬。民警劝阻这个赵木星的时候，他拒绝配合，用身体和头撞民警，用砖头拍自己的头，咬伤自己的手腕，这种自伤行为。民警看他不配合，13点55分的时候将赵木星带到办案区询问室进行询问。14点32分，赵木星2个女儿就到派出所大吵大闹，谩骂民警。然后民警出去制止的时候，他这2个女儿将民警陈某颈部和胸部抓伤。14点33分的时候，询问室的另一个民警就出来增援。14点39分的时候，民警返回询问室，就发现赵木星用自己的外套衣服的2个袖子勒在自己的脖颈上，吊在防护栏上面。民警马上就解开这个赵木星脖子上的衣袖，打120急救电话。2点56分的时候，救护车赶到，把这个赵木星送到医院救治，是他自己伤的。
在北京工作的90后公益志愿者蔡伟、陈梅和小唐，4月19号同时与外界失联。据报道，蔡伟和陈梅是瑞典新网站志愿者，在中共病毒爆发时，该网站备份了大量在微信、微博等平台被删除的有关疫情的文章，保存了疫情记忆。4月23号、14号，蔡伟和小唐的家人分别收到北京朝阳分局的指定居所监视居住通知书，当局指控2人涉嫌寻衅滋事罪。而陈梅的家人表示，到4月26号晚间，仍然没有任何他的相关消息。
又开始哭。83，这是83这个又开始哭，我原因，没事就为我自由奉献。
电视起的大火，烧啊，哇哇的，这消防队还没来，咔咔的看大眼，哇哇。
那个企业啊停产了，看看，停工了。
Along with states, the Pentagon says it needs additional tests for those in national security, including military aboard soon-to-be-deployed aircraft carriers. Defense leaders hope to increase testing from 7,000 a day to 60,000 by June.
And so I know it is tough, and I want to get this economy moving as fast as I can, but I refuse to throw away all the effort and the sacrifice of the British people and to risk a second major outbreak and huge loss of life.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson is due back at work today, and having suffered from the virus, he's said to be in favour of patience and caution when it comes to lifting the lockdown.
In Australia, just 115 people now in hospital. That's been dropping by about 10 or 15 a day for the last few days, so really good signs there. And the active cases, 1,100 patients still carry active infection in Australia. And
well into a 7th week in one of Europe's strictest lockdowns, just days from a third deadline. Italians are finally hearing what lies ahead. Factories are to reopen from the 4th of May. A week later, retail shops. And the week after that, bars, restaurants and museums.
Spain's lockdown rules banned children from going outside. But today, Spain relaxed those rules. 8 million children freed from their confinement. But this opening up is limited. Almost everyone in Spain is still confined, allowed out only for essential tasks.
Scotland is dealing with two public health crises simultaneously, the pandemic and Europe's highest level of drug-related deaths.
Meanwhile, China's ambassador to Australia has hit back at the Morrison government's push for an independent inquiry into the coronavirus pandemic. The ambassador warns that pursuing an inquiry is dangerous and could spark a Chinese consumer boycott of sales of popular Australian products like...
The government is not backing down from a push for an inquiry into China's handling of the coronavirus, despite a threat from the Chinese ambassador.
Yeah, it's a very united push, one for a global independent inquiry into COVID-19. Now, clearly that would focus on the role of the World Health Organization and also the role of China, what the Chinese Communist Party knew and when and what was done to try to suppress the virus. The quote coming from the ambassador was, I think in the long term, if the mood is going from bad to worse, people would think, why should we go to such a country that is not friendly to China? The tourists may have second thoughts. the parents of the students would also think whether this place, which they found is not so friendly, even hostile, whether this is the best place to send their kids here. And also, there was a threat about, eating Australian beef and wine. So a pretty clear threat, but not one that has the Australian government backing down in any way. A statement from the Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, has said, "We reject any suggestion that economic coercion is an appropriate response to call for such an assessment, and what we need is global cooperation."
So he says it's not time to talk about blaming China. Your thoughts?
Look, China spawned that virus. They hid it for 6 weeks. They could have contained it in Wuhan. They didn't. They seeded the world with this, with hundreds of thousands of Chinese getting on aircraft to Milan, to New York, and other places. During that 6-week period, what they did was they vacuumed up the world for personal protective equipment, over 2 billion masks, depriving public health care workers around the world from the defenses they need. And today, China's profiteering basically from this situation. Bill Gates, I'm all for innovation, but we have to hold China accountable. And now China is even flooding us with these bad tests. So Mr. Gates and I will differ on the need to hold China accountable. That's certainly the case, because the Chinese Communist Party basically inflicted this virus on the world, and we should never forget that here in America.
So about the Chinese have many weaknesses, but they have one strength. They're very good at bribing people. They really bribe people many different ways. They certainly try to bribe me, but in a very elegant way, by publishing, for example, this book of mine, all my books, this book in Chinese. They published it, the government did, in a very sumptuous way, with all kinds of decorations. And they said, well, now we published a book, now you have to come and give us a talk and so on. With people, they have given millions to people who write things about China. I would say that about 50% of all the op-ed writers who have been published in New York Times and the Washington Post on the subject of China have received money from the Chinese. And just 3 days ago, or 2 days ago, the European Union would not they did not agree on a text that would condemn China for having misled the European Union, as they sure did, because the Italian government objected. Why? Because the foreign minister belongs to the Five Star Party, and they bought the Five Star Party. The Five Star Party is a pro-Chinese party at the present in the Italian government, and their share of the government is the foreign ministry. So the foreign minister of Italy is in fact a Chinese propagandist. I'm not saying they bribed him personally, but they certainly bribed people in the party. And more or less, so this is now, not only do they bribe, which many people try to do, including the Saudis tried to purchase a lot of American, but they do it very well. They're really good at bribery. They don't come and say, I will give you money and you speak for us. No, they invite them. They treat them, they give them a huge importance and so on. Henry Kissinger is an example of it. When Henry Kissinger goes to China, he's a god. Xi Jinping rushes to go and clean his shoes. And what does Kissinger say? Well, Kissinger published a whole book just a few years ago in which he called for the world to be organized by a Chinese-American condominium, in which the Indians, the Japanese, everybody else would just fit in obediently. Once Beijing and China and Washington agree, we can tell the others what to do.
这句话的意义可大了去了，就把共产党的本质就跟你说出来。我今天比如说我在这直播，我直接我喊一场子，战友们啊，你们终于给当人了！哇塞，你突然就发现我自己不是人啊！七哥喊了，说你们终于给当人了，战友们，你看看你们这儿现在几千人、几万人，你们终于给当人了。你原来不是人，你知道吗？你听这话之前。 共产党从这站在天安门那一刻就告诉了你它的真正的本质。中国人民站起来了，你大爷来了！我们从来都他妈站着，什么时候蹲着过？啥时候蹲着过？告诉我。拉仇恨，贬低你的人格，让你失去真相，失去自我，失去对真相的判断，甚至你连自己是不是人你都不记得了。共产党、共产主义，它的本质是什么？灭掉上天，灭掉信仰，灭掉自然，灭掉真相，灭掉自我，拉仇恨。